Hello, welcome to Technology for Noobs. This time I'm thinking of doing something different rather than just publishing a one video which has a very specific task. This time I want to do a complete set or series of videos on a particular application where I wanted to do some application development and I also wanted to implement the data science implementation on the same application over a period of time. And certainly, I would need your suggestions, whoever is watching the videos or whoever think this could be the next best thing which we can do in this particular kind of project. So this time I thought of it's a Diwali occasion, so I thought, okay, let's create something where we can actually see the impact of data science and we can do some insight generation on the sales data, let's say. So what I have done is I prepared a small app, a billing app in Python, and most of the work for this video would be in the JavaScript rather than Python, because Python is going to be our backend and JavaScript would be the UI. But I'm going to do a simple HTML UI and you can modify it based on your liking on a particular stack. But this would be the whole idea. So I prepared a billing system where I have a list of items which the shop has, and these are actual items from my own shop as well. So the example would be like, okay, I click on one item and or a sweet product, and then it keeps on doing calculating or creating the bill for me. So what it would help me on, instead of doing all the calculation manually there itself, I will be able to have my own billing system, and I would take phone number of the end user before submitting my bill. So why I needed the Python, or this all could be done by the JavaScript, but we would have a more implications at the later point of time because of the data science aspect. So I will have my bill and then I will just generate some, I will take the contact number and I will say submit, and it will save the data into a CSV file for now. That's how I have implemented it for now. So it will take name, quantity, price, total, customer number, and a unique transaction ID. And this time this transaction ID is nothing but the timestamp. I just made it time.ctime and I got the timestamp. So that I wanted to track what time, which date, what hour the user has made the transaction, and that would become my unique ID and it would always be unique for now. And then name, price, quantity, total, whatnot. So this is the simple starting video for this entire series. So let's see how I can just simply make this simple layout and do this all calculations. So I always used to think how all this thing would work. So this time I tried and implemented, and most of the things end up being in JavaScript. All the calculations, only the UI part where I'm just displaying the image and the price, this is being done using Python or sending the data, but or Django templates. But the billing detail is happening through JavaScript only. So in this particular video there would be more content on the JavaScript rather than in Python, and we will just lay out the framework for now. And certainly in later point of time we would when we would be discovering more aspects of this particular application, we might have to change the architecture or we might have to change the structure of the data, and I'm kind of open to do so. The reason, because then only we would know how exactly the system or the decisions of designing our database or designing our architecture or designing our REST APIs depends. So we'll be exploring it in near time. So let's jump into the first step where we have to start with our Django project. All the code would be found here, and from now onwards everything would be committed in this particular repo always. And this time I have added my requirement.txt as well. Previously I used to forget it, so this time I made sure I have it there, and all the code would be there, but I would be starting from the scratch in this particular video and I will push it. The most important thing which I am following this time is the Django version which I am using right now is 3.1.2, which is the latest I guess, and the Python version which I'm using is Python 3.6. I'm still not going to 3.7 or 3.8, but yeah. So this is what the current setup is about. Now to start with our project, I will just activate my and I will launch my VS Code. So we are at VS Code and I will just use the console of the VS Code now. I have selected my default as command. If you do not have, select default shell and then you select command prompt, and that's how you will get it. So my environment is already activated. If you do not know how to activate environment, please refer to just do a Google search, or there is a video of mine where you can find the same. Then to start with, I would say Django admin. Always follow certain this camel case and all the syntax rules, because it's really important you follow it, because somebody else would be reading it later point of time. So, and pardon me if I make any mistakes. So Django admin start project billing project, so we are good. So we are here now, billing project. I have to do cd billing project, then I have to do Django admin start app. I would say first page. That's my default, which I always give. Then I think we are good. I would just want to launch my app from here rather than from there. So always launch your visual code itself from here, so that you always be in the default route. Now I have to activate Py36. So we are good. Now I think everything is set up. Manage.py, run server. So this is good. So we are at the right spot. Now I have to start doing the initial changes. So we will start from setting up our settings. So Django app, installed app. So first page is our app name, so which is good. Then I would want templates. So nowadays they don't give OS, already imported os dot path dot join base dir comma templates. So when we do this, we have to create a folder, and our folder name would be templates, capital T, and just care for it, it should be in the same directory as it is here. Now we need our first one, where I have first page, let's say index.html. That would be our starting point, right? In the settings, as we have seen some image files, then we have to set the static. For the statics, it's always this you have to add, and your static and then media all has to be set in the settings. Once the settings are done, we will go to the first page in the views, and we can just simply say we have to create our first function, and let's call it index, take request, and then return render. So first we need some context data which we want to pass to the UI. I'm just giving something random, and in here index.html comma context. In the settings, in the URLs, we will set our first home page where the billing comes by default. So nothing has to be given here, comma. So from here we need from first page import views dot index, and just a home page, right? So once this is done, we also need the URLs to be URLs for the media or the static files. For that, we need two things to be imported. So one is static, and the second thing is the settings, where we have defined it, and then we have to add the media URLs in the URL pattern, so that media can be hosted from our Django app. So we are done with this. Now views.py, index.html, settings. So let's check in index.html. So views.py, we are sending A. Let's just check, and let's also check A, and then reload. So perfect, we have got our hello world, which is great. Now what we need is, we need to have our data. So for now, to start with, I'm making it hard coded, and we can always make it to database, and we will be doing it at the later point of the time. So I have my kind of a data handy, where we have our list of items or the name with the price value, and this is for now just to get things ready, and then later point of time, if we find some more efficient way of the data design or the database design, we will be implementing in such manner. So I can see immediately that my price list also has the money, and my list of item also has monies, and this is the image URL, where so I need this image. Then just a minute. So I have got my image. I will just save it here. So I created a media folder, and I put this file here, and this file would be my base image for everything. So as I said, I have duplicated value already, but I needed it for the way I implemented in the UI. So later point of time, I will find some efficient way where I don't have to duplicate the same data again and again, and that's called normalization in database terminology. So for now we are good. Now let's jump into designing our or writing the code for index.html. So first and foremost, in our index.html, what we need is the list of items in our UI. So to start with, I would just first go ahead and will pass my list of items to my index function. So here I will just pass it to the context, save it. Now in here I should be able to access it simply, and I am able to access it. Now I have to run it in a loop. So to understand the structure first, so it's within a dictionary, and there is a key, and then there is a value, and this could be done without even using the dictionary also. It just for now it is there, so we can just learn how to use the dictionary. But to keep in mind, you can start from, you instead of doing it in the dictionary form, you can start from doing it in the list, or I can immediately change it from the dictionary to list. So I've changed the from dictionary format to a list of dictionaries, and I think this would be good also for future. So now I will come to index.html. I will just say for val in list of items, and for, and I would just say val, right? Let's just have a look, and now this is kind of good. So name, is it repeated? Yes, because of this. Now this is good. Now what we have to do is, we have to first get all the values. So if I just do name, which is perfect, now I'm able to see the names only. So this is how I'm able to access all the things. So the first learning which I found is, if I'm sending something from the back end and I want to show it in the list, or I mean a tab or anything, or the blocks, then I can easily send them in a list of dictionaries, and then I'm able to find the name, image URL, and price simply, right? So let's just check again. So val.name, then let's do image src, and that would be val.image URL. Let's just check the value. Image URL, and then we have val.price. Let's check again, image price, right? So this is good. Now we have this is beautified. So I will do some basic things now. The most easiest way which I found so far is to do bootstrap 4, get all the required libraries and pull it. So like this CSS, I just copy it and I have to paste it. So HTML head, paste it here, and if you have some JavaScripts, which we will have later point of time, So just have it at the end of the page. That's all. Save it. Now they also give some layout where you can just learn how to do things. So I have my code handy. I will just use it here and then we will proceed further. But before that, I would create body for my contents, and this here we would have div, first div. So in my sample video I had two segments, right? So this is my first div, and then in my second div I will have the billing. So this is good. Now to create cards, what you can do is either search here for cards and you will see this particular things, and this is the code handy. So I have edited this code, and what I'm going to do is I will just put it here. So div class card style blah blah blah, everything is there. Then I have simply added my well.image URL for the image, and then in the body I just want to show the name and I just want to show the price, and I will just remove this thing. I will save it and let's check the UI, and as you can see it has rendered beautifully and our most of the work is done for the UI part. But now we want some buttons to show our data. To get the button, so after the body, right, after this body, what I need is I will just add input what I want as type as button, and then you get some options like name of that button, whatever you want to give, and then value of that button which you want to pass when the user clicks on it. So let's say for the name I can give 1 kg and the value would be, let's say, simply 1. Let's check first. So 1, right? So the value is being shown. So 1 kg we want to show, and the name, let's just say simply 1 for now. So 1 kg. Similarly, what we can do is I can just copy paste. I need 3 buttons for 1 kg, for 500 gram, and then I need for 250 gram. And this is just by choice. As I said, we want to learn something at the end of the day. So 0.25 and 0.5, right? So this is good. Now when the user clicks, some action should happen. So we want this two sites, our hello world, I would just rename it to Sweet Shop 2020. So we want the two blocks, and this can be easily done by doing this. I want div column 9, which is perfect. Now for the same I want for the billing side div column 3, and I have got my nice partition where I can see all the items that are listed. Now here we want the billing system. So for the billing system, first we need to prepare this particular functionality on click actions, right? So that's what it is. Let's jump into that part. So to start with getting the billing segment, it certainly for the end user, it will start from here by clicking on one of the buttons, right? But for us to start with, what we actually want to do is we want to get a table here which gets populated when we do any action in the UI with this any kind of button, right? Any one of these buttons. So our first step would be to populate a table using JavaScript. As simple as that. So to start with, what we are going to do is in here, and we are going to do all our operation using JavaScript. So populating the table using JavaScript. So how JavaScript works is you have to just create one location on which the JavaScript has to, or for which JavaScript has to look for. So to give a location for the JavaScript, what we can do is we say table, and then we say we give it an ID. So let's say I call it sales, or you want to call anything, no problem. So this is an ID which is the locator for our JavaScript to find, place and populate the data here. So this is the table. Now in any table we have, so for in any table we have two different things, let's say, to separate it out, to even break the problem statement even more, how to create table. So the first element is to create a header, and the second is to create the rows and in HTML world. So this is the table ID. Now whatever code we are about to write would be inside the scripts. So after body, I will write a script, and this is good. So in script, what we will do is we will start with a sample data. Let's populate a sample data first. So I will say sales data. This is our or to be in sync sales value is a list, and list of what? I will just create a dictionary following our previous. Then we have price, and then we will price, let's say, for 200, and then we have quantity. Let's say the person is buying some 100 quantity, right? So I will just duplicate it so that we can have enough data. Now after this, what we want is we want the headers, as I said, the names which we want to be in top of our table. So I will say variable table header, and I want index, and then I want name of the product, then I want the price, and then I want the quantity, and then I want total. Then sales value which we just created, just in some variable, and if you want you can close it with colon, semicolon. Now here, to create the table, we will just use few functions. So I will create a function and I would call it create header, and if this all seems familiar to you, I have already wrote this code in one of my previous video which called pagination in HTML or real-time HTML data, all those. So you can follow that as well, but yeah, for now we are good. So create header in the function, and this function would take two elements. First is the table itself where we want to populate the header, and then the values which we want to populate. So in this function, so just few steps. So we have to create the first variable called thead, and what it will do is we'll say table. So this table where we want to do all this stuff, then table dot. So these are some inbuilt functions for table header, let table row. So in the header we want to add the first row, and this t row would be in the t head dot insert row. Once we have designed these two things, so when first we created the t head, then we are adding the t row, then we have to just iterate over whatever values we have in the t header. So for in table header, what we want to do is let th is equal to document dot create element, and what element we want? th element. So th for header, and then let the value which we want to pass in the th is the text, and the text would be document dot create text node. In the text node I will pass the val, because this is what we want to send it there. So this val is actually the index, and the table header is the list value which we have. So this is how we will call it. Then the th element which I created, I would just say th dot append child and the text value. So the text value would be inserted, then the t row which we created there, t row dot again append child, then th, and that's how our first header is created. So now similarly, once the header is created, we would just take this table again and we will put the sales values, and that's how the table will get created. So now function our create table body, and it will take the table again and we will pass the data. Our data is sales values. So you can give any name because it's a function, I'm just giving it for the same reference. You can pass some any value, and then later on when we call this function, we call the actual value which we want to pass. So in here, if you would have noticed, the data which is coming is only with name, price and quantity, and the header which I want is index as well. I want the list number of items, right? So index is something which we are going to generate using JavaScript only. So that index would start from 1 and it will be incremental value. So simple, where our sum value in inc is equal to 1. Then on the sales data we will loop over and we will just populate the data now. So in here I would say let, so we will add a row, and the row would be table dot insert row, and we will just have a empty row. Then in the row we will just add the cells, and the adding the cell would be simple. Let cell is equal to row dot insert cell, and then done. So once the cell is created, now we have to add the value, and the simplest way is just simply by doing this. So this is where to create it more dynamically, I would just create another function whose job is to just add the value on the by creating a cell and adding the value to it. So function add element, what I need is I need a row, and in that row I want just what value I want to add there. So let cell is equal to row dot insert cell, and then let text is equal to document dot create text node. I will pass the value there, and then simple cell dot append child and then text. So by this way I will add the element directly to the cell. Now in here what I will do is, so we want to loop over the sales value and just add those as a row, right? Simple. So for value in sales value, first I will take one sales value, I will add the row there, and in the row, so in that row the first element is going to be my index. So I have to follow this order now. So here index, name, price, quantity, total. Create header, add element. Now in here the first thing which I want to do is I will just put the value there itself. So insert row, then add element, and what we want, row comma inc, and this will add the first element for my data. Shall we try it once? That would be a good exercise. So how to populate all this? So now we have written these three functions. So this script will get called, and I will just call create header. So how this all will be called in the UI is simple. So we have created this ID. So we want to refer that ID to JavaScript. So we want to say JavaScript look for that ID and just do this functions, right? Simple, and perform these functions there. That's all. So what we're gonna do is we will just say variable table content is equal to document dot get element by ID, and our ID name is sales. So now I have my table. I just located that table. Once I have it, I will just simply say create header, the table which we want to pass, that is table content, and the values which we want to add here is our table header. Once this would be created, what we want to do is we want to call create table body, and we want to pass again table. So the first thing is table, and the next thing which we want to pass is the sales values. Save it. Let's try. Nothing came. To debug, we can just look into the inspect. So in here we have got table. Table has got t head, and t head got nothing. So create header, we have called this function, yes. So in create header we created t head. Everything looks fine. Let's just check it from here. Cannot access th before initialization. I made a stupid mistake. This has to be inside. So here we got our index name, price, quantity, and the index. So increment, the index must have been incremented. So here, once we are done, I want inc is equal to inc plus 1. Now I will just refresh. 1, 2, 3. Perfect. Now once we are done, as you have seen, we have added the element for each value in the sales for each data. Now what I'm going to do is, so this is the only index. I'm going to add all the data immediately. So what I want is sales values, well, and then name. After index, I had to put the name. So name, price, quantity, total. So name would be from here. So that's good. Add ELE, and what I want to add is the row and the sum data, and then this would put the value there. Now same I am going to do for once name, then price, then quantity, and then we have to just do one more operation to get the total values. So what we gonna do is, I will just multiply this with this and just check again. So we have got our values. Perfect. Now once we have our table, what I'm gonna do is, we will add another thing that was called remove in my sample video. Now to add a button, remove button in our UI, the first thought which comes to my mind was, okay, I have to just do a simple, I have to just add the button here and I would be done. In the table body where I'm creating, I would just add a button. But then it comes to my mind that no, this is not a plain HTML anymore. This is in JavaScript. So adding a button in JavaScript is kind of simple, but it was new for me. So I would create a variable called button, and what I will do is I will add another cell, right? I won't do dot table dot insert row or like here insert cell. What I will do is I will create a TD element. So create element, and in the element what I will be creating is a TD with which becomes the cell actually. So now I have this element, and in JavaScript, I can pass HTML plain code as a value. So what I'm going to do is, inner HTML, I would say input and type is equal to button, and let's say value is equal to remove. So let's just check this thing for now. Click, nothing came because I have not added the column also. So total and then remove. So remove the first, the column came now. Now let me just check here. So add element, create header, create body here. The input tag is not closed. So in here I would just do this, save. Oh, made a biggest mistake. So once this is there, I have to add this particular thing to the row dot the row which we are working on, row dot append and the button, and save, and let's check, and now we have got our remove, so which is good. So we will come to the remove action again later, but by so far we are able to publish or create this UI. We have added the button, we are able to populate a table. Now I'm going to add the add action once we click any of the such buttons. So the first thing which we have to care for is, within JavaScript we have all these functions which creates the header, which adds the element, which creates the body, and this is the sales value which we were populating so far. So what we have to do is we have to add an implementation which manipulates this particular sales values, and that's it. So to do this, we will be doing what? So I will add another function. So in here I will add another function which is going to help us on, so function add bill, let's say add item, sounds good. Add item, and in that item we will be passing some data to that function, and this function would end up adding the data to our sales value. Right? Sounds good. Now once we are here, let's just check console.log and data to add. So let's click some buttons and get the data here. So we will come to here in the button. What we will do, we have on click, and on clicking we will be calling add item. So when we will be calling the add item, this particular function, we have to pass something, right? So what we will do, we will use the functionality of JavaScript where you can just simply say this dot which attribute you want to pass, like name, value, anything. So let's just pass name for now, and let's check how it shows up in the console. So I'm here, reload, go to console, click on it. So one, rest won't work. So one will work, one, one, one. Right now our sales value expects data to be in a dictionary format, right? And our input, where the add data to add we are sending, can send the data in, let's say, dictionary. So now I will check with dictionary. I will click one. Okay, broken. Okay. Oh, because it's a dictionary, I would say name, right? Let's just reload, go to console and click on one. So now name is equal to one, so which is not name actually, but it's a quantity. Just reload quantity. So this dot name, we are successfully able to get it. Then we have name, which is fine. We have value, which is being shown there. So in here what we can do is, well, we can get well dot name, and we can pass it here, name, this dot name. So the challenge which I found when I was working on it, that we can have only two values here, kind of. So one I have name, the other I have value, and the other thing which I can have max is the ID, right? So in here what I want to pass, what we want to pass is like name, price, quantity, total, and remove. So total we can calculate. We want the quantity, what the user is. Now we want the name, but what about the price now? And we want to keep the IDs intact. We do not want to change it. And the another thing is, when we have value, so value is just for the display. Now we cannot use it. Now this dot name cannot be used for quantity for sure. So this dot name is already used for the name now, and now we want the quantity. So that's where what I did was, I put the quantity in ID. ID is equal to 0.5, and this we are not going to use also. So ID. Now what I'm going to do is view dot all these things, because we need it. Then I have the values, and on click, as you can see, this dot name will have the, so this dot ID will be my quantity, and name would be this dot name. I will just take it as it is and I will save it. Now I click on it. One, so quantity name laddu, 0.5 quantity name vidya, and so on. So this is all working now as expected. So now what we have to do is, we have to populate those data in here, right? Simple. So we come to this particular point. So here what I'm going to do is, I'm going to insert each action or each data point which is being passed from the button to our sales values, which is our list here. So sales values, so console.log, we are able to get it, and that's where in my views.py I pass the price, because I could not get the price from the JavaScript button action. And this is where it comes to my mind that it would be better if I populate this list of items also using JavaScript, but for now I am going to use as it is what I have implemented. So in index.html we would be declaring a variable which is price list, and we would be calling this, And the most important thing which we have learned in my some of the previous videos, the data is not acceptable from Django to JavaScript until I use save. If I have more integers in it, it does not take it simpler. So load source, let's say element. So in the script, as you can see now, price list has all the values. Now from our input button, we will be getting only these two values. Add item will have quantity and name. So name will become my key value to look up the price for that particular data. Now in here, what I'm gonna do is I have data to add which will have quantity and name. What I'm gonna add is data to data. This does not sound good. Name good. Data to add, and what I want is the price which I will get from price list. In price list, I have to pass data to add and name. So that would become my key and it will look up the table for me, data for me. Then similarly, I want the total. So data to add total, and the total would be data to add price multiply by data to add quantity. So now I have got my total and then I have got my quantity, and the same thing can be directly pushed data dot push to sales values. Now simply we have found our sales values, we added it there. Now we have to regenerate the data or table. We have to just repopulate the table again. So what I found the easiest way to do is just simply take all this code, bring it here and just make it this way. So what usually happens is, let's view it first whether it is working or not. What happened? Data to data is not defined. Sorry. So our data is there and now it is replicating. So what's the error is, because when I click, it is just going to repopulate everything again on the same ID, the sales ID which we created in the HTML. So what I'm going to do is table content dot inner HTML is equal to empty. Now remove it. 1 2 3 4, right? It's doing all the calculation correctly. And now here I can just remove everything, empty, refresh. 1 kg, half kg, 25 gram, everything is working perfect. Now in here what I can do is I can just so our add functionality is done, our remove functionality is left now, and there is one part which is missing, is calculating the total sales value in here. So first and foremost, what I'm gonna do is I'm going to just use bootstrap 4, search for table, and in table I like it like this one. Just take class table, copy, bring it here, class table, save, reload, and our table is beautified, which is good, right? Now in here what we want to do is we want to, let's first calculate the total sales. So for that what we can do is add some breakpoint, and then our total also needs to be calculated using JavaScript because JavaScript is doing most of the things here. So what I can do is I will create an empty some span or any element wherever you find it good. I will just create a ID and I will populate it using JavaScript. So ID, and I would say a total just to give a name, and let's put the value there. Now to add the value there, so we found the data total there, and now the important thing which we have to do is write some other function which does this job for us. Some val, it will take nothing. We can just simply keep on calling it. So I create some variable, some val is equal to 0. So we'll start from 0 always, and then our total sales element in our, so document dot get element by ID, and our ID name is total. So this we want to populate with the sum value. So as we have seen, we want to populate the value, so like we did it here for the table, we will just do it for the table sales also. Dot inner HTML is equal to empty. Then in our sales values, we will just loop over for element in sales value. Then we will do what? Sumval, which we defined here. Sumval is equal to sumval plus sales values. As always, remember this is the index, not the element itself. Sales value element and then total. This is what we want. Once we are done, what I will do is our sales value which I created, we will add that value to there. So where just anything span well is equal to document dot create element, just anything span well dot inner HTML, and what I'm gonna do is I will just pass the data directly s3 and total bill amount would be plus, so just a string operation here, nothing fancy, and our sum well which we created, which we are calculating. So let's check now. I do not see sum well here because I think I have not added it in the element again. Total sales element dot, so total sales element dot append child, and then simply do span well and save. Reload again. I still do not see it. The reason is I'm not calling the function. So sum well, call it. So it should get executed and it will do the job. Perfect. Now let's try it. Good, but it didn't calculate it. Good, it didn't calculate it. The reason would be, so the first time it is getting executed, and what happens when we add the data, add the element. So when we do the add element, we again have to call sumwell. So in our sumwell, we are already removing the element, so which is good. In add item, I will just call it, reload 1, perfect, half kg, 250 gram, everything should work, which is perfect. Now the next thing which we have to do is, when we are adding any such elements, we also have to remove some of the items, right? So to do that particular work, what we have to do is we have to click, or we have to add a functionality on this particular button as well. So to do that, I have sumwell. Now I have to write a functionality which would be called something like remove item. So let's write it here. So function and remove item, let's say for now, and let's just think through what would happen, what we want to happen after this particular remove item implementation. So when we will be doing the remove item, and we all have seen this is how our data looks like, which is a element, which is a list of dictionaries. So what information you would need from the remove, when we will be doing the remove, which item to remove. So this is where our index could be really helpful. So what we can do is, okay, remove this particular element from this particular dictionary or the list, and then we know from where exactly we have to remove. So if I click on the second, we know the second element has to be removed from our list of dictionaries of our sales values. So what I'm going to do is, let's just start writing. So what I will get is index well, which would give at which location I have to remove the list or the element from the list of dictionaries of our sumwells. So let's see console dot log and sales values. So this is what we need console dot log and I have my index val. Then to remove any element from a given specific index in JavaScript, what you have to do is, it's very simple. Sales value dot splice, and then the index from where we want to remove. And so the index which we are passing is always +1. So what we want to do is, because it starts from 0, so -1 and comma 1. What I meant was, in JavaScript the 0 is the first index, not the 1 or 2. And when we were populating it in our UI, so we always started from 1, we were adding +1 to it, and that's where index val -1, and the first element we want to just remove. So that's how splice works, and it will remove it from wherever we want it. So now where our sales value is populated, now the next best thing which we know is to just populate our table. So we will call it this one. So variable table content, get the element. Once the element is found, remove the table contents. Table content dot inner HTML is equal to this empty. Then we created all the things. Now once we have created the table, we want to call our sum-val as well to update the total data. So in here it is doing it by itself, so we are good. So we are good here. Now let's reload. 1 kg, half kg, anything. Now I will remove it because it didn't work. The reason, in the button, which is this particular part, where is the button creation? Add item, create table body, here. So we have not called the function here. So now what we want to do is, so the first thing is we have to call the function add is there, then sum-val, and then remove item. So we have to add on click remove item, right? So this is good. Now the remove item expect us to pass the index. To pass the index, what we can do is we can just simply ask for id, and in id we can pass our ink, right? Because that contains the value there. And always remember of giving a space, otherwise it will join with the type and it will break the code. Then type button, which is good. Now value we have added as remove. I will just make it capital R. And then we have function on click, and in here what we can just do is this dot id. I think we are good here. Let me just add one more thing. Name is equal to, just for the sake completion. Reload, which is good. One click remove, perfect, and it printed it as well. 6 3 4 remove, which is working. Now the best thing which we want after this particular part, we are good here, we are good here, all the things are working. Now in here I think we are almost done. Now comes to the part of creating the form through which we want to submit all the actions which are being performed in the billing page to be saved as a transaction history in our backend. So for that particular purpose, what I'm going to do is, in the billing form, what I want to enter is the total value, the customer contact number, and all the elements which the user has selected. I want to be saved in my system. So let's add a form in our UI. So we have a total, which is good. Then we have this table, which is also good. Now we have to just add a form. I will just take everything within a div, then which is good. Now in this div I would take a form, this div here. My form would be finished. In the form, what we want is method, because we are putting the data, that is post. Then we want encryption type would be multi-part form data. Then our action would be some name which we want to submit details, right? Now when the user will call submit details, we will be adding the logic here. Path submit details, views dot submit detail, then we come to views, def submit details, request. We have to just pass the same data again. Now in the form, as I said, I want to send. So what I want to do is I want to send all the relevant data from my billing part to my backend. So what I'm going to do is I will just add those required informations. So we are in here, index. So this is the div. So billing details, then index no blah 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 blah, then here total amount. So all these values which I want to be sent as an input should be part of a input tag, right? So this is where I don't want to disturb anything from here, anything. I just would, what I will do is I will create an input, and in input my type would be hidden, so it won't be visible, and all the data would be filled by itself. So what I will do is I will give it a name. So let's say purchase detail, and in the purchase detail I want to fill all the values which are being stored in the dictionary format, and it is stored in the form of our variable sales value, right? So what I will do, I will use the JavaScript functionality again, and I will just add the values there. So I will just do it this way. So I want to call each and every time whenever there is a create table body action happens, or instead of create table body I can add it in the add item, because whenever an item is being added we want to just push it there. So document dot get element by id, which id, purchase detail, and then I just want to replace the value. So just to be careful about, so it's a it's a JSON format, and we want to pass it to the backend using our post method. So better is to stringify the values, otherwise we won't be able to find it properly. So this is the first thing which we want to update on every action. And then similarly, so my first, in my form, the first thing which I want to update is the purchase detail. The second thing which I want to update is the total sum value, again hidden. Name is equal to total value. This is the total bill amount, right? So don't confuse it with the total of each individual item. Then name is equal to, name is already there, id is equal to same total value. So these two values would be hidden, not been visible for the end user, and total value would not be that. Our total value would be some well, and there is no need to do it all this. Save. Once I have it, I need a submit button as well. So in my form where I would need a some input, type is equal to button, not button but submit, and then value would also be submit. Now the third thing which we want is the phone number of the user. So after billing details, input type would be text, input type would be text, and then name is equal to customer number, and then let's add a text here also, phone number, and then let's add some breakpoints again, not breakpoints but space, enter. So phone number, okay, then I will add some bill, then I will do submit. So CSRF exam field, which is good. Now we want CSRF exempt, so we are just ignoring it, or we are providing the token here, CSRF token, submit. Perfect, it worked. So post happened. Now in here in the views we have to add the logic of storing the data in somewhere, anywhere, right? There is no question. So what I can do is I have, let's just check what we have got so far. Customer number is equal to how to get it. So request dot post dot get and the value from our index.html, that is customer number. The second thing which we want is the purchase detail. Again request dot post dot get name purchase details. The third thing which we have is, let's just print, or instead of printing we can just debug. So I will stop it here, run debug, Django. Okay, it's running in base. It has to run in Python 3.36. No problem. Select interpreter, Python 3.6. So now it has been changed, so it is working now. So in the views.py we can just stop it directly here, add, submit. So it stopped here. So what is my customer number, EFEF, which I send? What is my purchase detail? As you can see, it's in a string, which is good. So when it is in a string, we want to get it in a list format as it is already. So for that, what we can do is from AST import literal eval. So in here, purchase detail literal eval, just pass it. One more time, add some value, pass it. So customer number would be empty, purchase detail is now in a list, which is perfect. Total value, let's execute it. Total value is empty, which is also fine for now. Why it would be empty? It has to be 700. Okay, leave it for now. Now I have my data in place. Let's just save it in a file for now. So run it. So total value. Now we have to create some pandas data frame. This is already in a list. So we can create data frame from empty list directly in data frame. So import pandas spd. So here pd dot data frame and just pass the purchase detail. Right, so when I execute this, what my xx would be, so as you can see it is already in the format. So quantity, name, price, total, everything is already there. Now in this data frame, what I have to just do is I will just have to add the customer number in each line. Then I will have purchase detail is already there, total does not make sense for now, and then we have to create a unique transaction ID to differentiate each purchase, right, of individual customer. So for that, so the best thing to do is import time, and in time there is a functionality ctime through which you can get, or just time will also do, ctime will give you in text. So int, if I do int, it will convert the time in integer, time. So let's just print xx for now. Submit. So we reached here, then done. So as you can see, quantity, name, price, total, customer number, transaction number, all are in place now. And this 3 has one transaction ID all. So this is how I thought our data structure would be good for now. One transaction ID, all the lists, and the user number, the customer number would be our user ID now to differentiate between customer to customer, and that's how our database would be. Now for now, I have just thought of, let's save this in a CSV file rather than breaking our head on managing all the things in the database. But I will be doing it in the next part of the video when we find, yes, now this is the right time to introduce the database, because we have to just add few models and everything will be taken care. So right now, let's just do one thing. So we have got our data frame created. What I will do is data.toCSV and database.csv, index is equal to false, and save it, run it. Done. So 1, 2, 3 and submit. So data is not defined, data.o. So that is our XX for now. Submit, submitted. Then let's check the folder. Right, so this is perfect. Now next time whenever there would be new user, I just want to add that in the same place. Not, I don't want to rewrite or overwrite it again and again. So now from here onwards, what I can do is data is equal to pd dot read csv, and then in here data is equal to pd dot concat data comma xx, and now I can do data again. Save. I should be closing it. So this is our database written in 1120. I will just make one more transaction, submit, and the data is here, which is good. Now this is the end of the first part of this series, right? I mean, this is not even the first part, this is the beginning. Now the second thing which we want to do is I want to create the dashboard of the transactions which we are getting, so that now let's we are a different head here. Okay, so far we were developing something. Now let's think as a business owner. Now you have the transaction details, what kind of metrics you want to see in your dashboard, what kind of other operations you want to see in the next part. Like let's say I am adding few options, right? I added few items. Now in here I want to see a recommendation to me that what else I should recommend to the customer, right? And through this I would be able to do my cross selling or upselling, all the blah blah things. So we need some insights, we need some metrics, KPIs to look out for, right? So this is one. The second thing which I would want to see in my dashboard is which days of the week I have more sales, which product is being sold most, right? Which products combined with other products are being sold more, what is the time in the day when my particular item is being sold, or this particular time my inventory always goes off. So all this information we want to track, right? So this is where I would invite all of you, whoever want to do this project with me, that yeah, let's have this particular kind of a problem statement with this particular project. Let's try to solve this particular problem statement with this particular project. Can we also track something more from this data? So let's break the chain here and let's do a bi-directional communication where you guys also do the same exercise with you. And I would also invite you guys to participate in this GitHub repository, and let's do a lot of things with this particular project. And I feel the marketing or sales data would give you more learning on how to crunch data, how to learn more about data science. And because this generates money, right? This at the end generates money, and everybody knows what is profit, what is loss. And we can also think of how to get some offers, right? Which kind of offer would be good on this particular project. We would also look into for what things can be clubbed together, right? Market basket analysis, so that we can create some packages or deals in the later point of time in this particular system. So I will prepare some dummy data, I will share it with you guys as well, which looks realistic, and through which we can generate at least some kind of insight, and we can learn more from this particular project. I thank you for your time, and thanks for the subscriptions, and thanks for supporting me or liking my videos or watching it. So I'm open for any kind of feedback or any suggestions to improve on the content. So thanks for your time, and have a great learning and have a great day. Stay safe.